You think you know what a genius is. You picture someone just like us, maybe reading a little faster or solving math a bit quicker. Just a normal human mind, turned up to 11. That is all it is, right? Wrong. When Richard Feynman, one of the most brilliant physicists to ever live, looked closely at his colleague John von Neumann, he realized he was not looking at a smarter human. He was looking at something else entirely. Today, we are going to explore a mind that quietly built the modern world you live in, operating on a completely different frequency. Think about how your mind works right now. You're probably holding one, maybe two, thoughts at a time. It is peaceful, like walking down a quiet, narrow country dirt road. If your mind is a dirt road, John von Neumann's mind was an 8-lane superhighway with cars flying by at 1,000 miles an hour, all in perfect coordination. Other brilliant scientists, the absolute smartest people in the world, would spend weeks setting up complex physics problems on giant blackboards. Von Neumann would just sit there, stare into space for a few seconds, and give you the exact answer. He was doing the entire catastrophe of math right there in his head. But processing speed is nothing without storage. Imagine reading a 46-volume encyclopedia of world history. Now imagine closing those books and reciting them word for word decades later. And he could do that. He used to memorize pages of the phone book just to entertain people. His brain did not just store information, it locked it in a vault and handed him the key whenever he wanted. So, how much is a brain like that actually worth? Well, the Rand Corporation, a major think tank, wanted him on their team, but they did not need him to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. They figured out that his mind was so fast, so completely relentless, that his casual, wandering thoughts were more valuable than entire teams of researchers working around the clock. They actually paid him a full-time salary just for the ideas he came up with during the 15 minutes he spent shaving in the bathroom mirror every morning. Just 15 minutes of idle thinking with a razor in his hand, and then he would casually solve problems that had stumped everyone else. But what does it actually feel like to process the world that way? How does a mind like that even see reality? To understand how strange this is, you have to compare him to other absolute geniuses. Take Richard Feynman. Feynman was famous for having synesthesia. When he looked at a complex math equation, he did not just see numbers on a chalkboard, he saw colors. For him, a certain variable might be a light tan, another a violet blue. Equations danced in his mind. He would visualize the physical world. He would feel the atoms jiggling, bouncing, and rolling around. It is a beautiful, deeply human, almost poetic way to understand the universe. But John von Neumann did not think like that. He did not need dancing colors or visual metaphors. He thought in pure, absolute symbols. His mind was a machine operating with a mechanical precision of 1,000th of an inch. If a problem was a massive, tangled knot, and he did not imagine pulling the strings with his hands, he just saw the underlying logic, the raw code of reality, and mathematically snapped the pieces together. It was completely abstract. No intuition required, no feeling out the physical space of the problem. Just pure, unadulterated calculation. This unsettled some people. It made them wonder if he was just a savant, someone with a peculiar wiring error that accidentally turned him into a biological supercomputer. But the greatest scientists of the 20th century knew it was something much more profound. Hans Bethe, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist who was constantly surrounded by the smartest people on Earth, spent a lot of time watching von Neumann think. Bethe did not just call him smart. He said that von Neumann's brain felt like an entirely new physical development, and he described it as a newly developed organ. Think about what that actually means. Bethe was suggesting that the gap between a normal human and John von Neumann felt like an evolutionary leap. An organ designed to process the abstract reality of the universe with a speed and clarity that we literally do not have the biological hardware to comprehend. We are slowly pushing the ball up the hill, hoping it falls into the hole. He was just putting the ball exactly where it belonged, instantly. So, you have this newly evolved organ, this perfectly precise, logic-driven machine housed in a human body. But he was not locked away in a quiet library somewhere. He was right in the middle of the most chaotic, high-stakes moment in human history. So, what does a mind ahead of its time actually look like when it walks right through the burning, messy desert of reality? Picture Los Alamos in the 1940s, the Manhattan Project. It is the middle of the desert. The heat is absolutely brutal. The sun is beating down, and you have some of the most brilliant physicists in the world working together. They are all sweating. They are in t-shirts with rolled-up sleeves, trying to deal with the dust and the heat. And then, there is John von Neumann. He is walking through this desert, and he is wearing an immaculate, tailored, three-piece suit. Even when the scientists would go hiking through the Red Rock Canyons on their days off, climbing over boulders, von Neumann would be right there with them, still wearing the three-piece suit. He looked like he was about to step into a corporate boardroom in New York, not hike through a canyon. He was just comfortable like that. And his mind was so completely focused on the abstract, on the mathematics, that the physical discomfort of the desert heat just did not seem to register. But you cannot talk about Los Alamos without talking about what they were actually building. They were building the atomic bomb. This is where the reality of his genius gets very complicated. That same perfectly logical mind, the one that saw the universe in pure symbols, was actively crunching the numbers for a weapon of unprecedented destruction. He helped figure out exactly how the explosive lenses needed to be arranged to crush the plutonium core and start the chain reaction. He calculated the exact height the bomb needed to detonate to cause the maximum possible damage on the ground. It is a heavy thing to think about. Yet when you have a mind that can pull apart the fabric of reality and snap it back together, what do you do with it? He saw a math problem that needed solving, and he solved it perfectly. It is a stark reminder that genius is not inherently good or bad. It is a tool. And the same mind that helped design a weapon capable of ending the world was also quietly sketching out the blueprint for the entire modern era. So, how exactly did he build the world you are sitting in right now? Look at the device you're holding right now. Your phone, your laptop, whatever screen is glowing in front of your face. You tap it, and things happen. You probably think it is a physical object, made of glass, metal, and tiny silicon chips. But here is the secret. What you are actually holding is just a physical replica of a thought John von Neumann had in 1945. Before him, computing machines were giant, rigid calculators. If you wanted the machine to do a different math problem, you literally had to walk over to it, unplug dozens of physical cables, and plug them into different holes. You had to rebuild the physical machine every single time. It was slow. It was limited by the physical barriers of wires and metal. But von Neumann looked at this clunky reality and saw something completely different. And he realized that the instructions telling the machine what to do did not need to be physical wires. They could just be numbers. They could be abstract symbols stored inside the memory, right next to the data. Instead of moving physical plugs, the machine could just shuffle invisible symbols around, snapping them together, breaking them apart, processing them at lightning speed. This is the stored program concept, the von Neumann architecture. Every single app you open, every message you send, and every video you stream, it is all running on that exact logic. He did not just help invent the computer, he invented the entire digital universe you live in today. You are existing inside his abstract playground. But the architecture of the modern world goes even deeper than your smartphone. Remember the atomic bomb? Von Neumann helped build it. But he also gave us the exact reason we never used it again. When he looked at the Cold War, the terrifying standoff between superpowers, he did not see politics, anger, or fear. He saw a math puzzle. He helped develop game theory, mapping human conflict into strict, logical grids. He mathematically proved that the only way to prevent two nations from destroying the planet was to guarantee that if one attacked, the other would absolutely destroy them in return. Mutually assured destruction. It sounds cold. It sounds like a terrible catastrophe waiting to happen. But that icy, abstract logic became the invisible shield that has held the modern world together for 80 years. But here is the fundamental tragedy of John von Neumann. You have this newly evolved organ, this perfect, relentless processing machine. But it is still trapped inside a fragile biological body. In his early 50s, von Neumann was diagnosed with bone cancer. It was a vicious, aggressive disease, likely caused by the very radiation he was studying out in the desert. And as the cancer spread, the unthinkable started to happen. The biological machine started to break down. For someone like him, the loss of physical mobility was nothing. The true horror was feeling his mind slip. Imagine having the entire architecture of the universe perfectly mapped out in your head, and then, slowly, feeling the lights turn off, one by one. The flawless memory is starting to drop files. The mathematical connections are snapping and falling apart, and it completely terrified him. But it terrified the United States government even more. If you walked down the hallway of the Walter Reed Hospital during his final days, you would see something completely surreal. Outside his room, there were armed military guards standing at attention, 24 hours a day, day and night. Why were they there? They were not protecting him from spies or assassins. They were there to protect his dying brain from itself. You see, von Neumann held the deepest, most dangerous secrets of the Cold War. The exact explosive configurations of nuclear warheads, the absolute mathematics of global destruction. All of it was securely locked inside that vault in his head. But as the cancer spread to his brain, and as the heavy doses of pain medication kicked in, the vault doors started to swing open, and his mind began to fracture. He would slip into delirium, talking in his sleep, his brain misfiring. The military was absolutely panicked that this human supercomputer, in a morphine haze, might just casually speak the classified codes of the apocalypse out loud to a passing nurse. They had to guard his fading thoughts until the very end. It is a haunting image. The man who laid the invisible tracks for the entire digital age, the man who calculated the exact cost of the end of the world, lying there as his perfectly ordered logic slowly dissolved back into the chaos of nature. But here is the most surprising thing about having a brain like that. You would think that being John von Neumann, the man who could casually outcalculate early computers, would make you incredibly confident. You would think he woke up every day feeling absolutely invincible. Wrong. The smartest man in the world was actually haunted by a deep, quiet insecurity. How is that even possible? It comes down to how he understood his own mind. Think of it like this. Von Neumann was a perfectly engineered race car. Put him on a paved track, give him a set of mathematical rules, and he would obliterate everyone else. He could snap the numbers together and accelerate through a problem faster than any human in history. But then he looked at someone like Albert Einstein, or his close friend Kurt Gödel. These men were not necessarily faster than him, and they were not race cars. They were explorers, hacking their way through a dense, dark jungle, discovering entirely new continents of thought. Von Neumann could solve any puzzle you put in front of him. But Einstein? Einstein was inventing the puzzles out of thin air. Von Neumann realized that his mind, this perfect calculating organ, was incredibly powerful, but he secretly feared it lacked that messy, intuitive spark of true creation. He once confessed that he felt he had never invented anything fundamentally new in mathematics. He believed he just took other people's brilliant flashes of insight and relentlessly pushed them to their absolute limits. It is a strange, almost heartbreaking paradox. He laid the foundation for the entire digital age. He held the terrifying physics of the atomic era in his head. Yet, and he spent his life looking over his shoulder, quietly wondering if he was just a very fast machine imitating a true genius. And that brings us to a very unsettling thought. If the man who built the architecture of our modern world saw his own brain as just a powerful machine, what happens when we finally finish building machines that are faster than him? We are living in the exact future John von Neumann predicted. The machines he dreamt up are now getting faster, smarter, and more complex every single day. They are learning to snap those abstract symbols together at speeds he could not even imagine. But remember what he feared most? That pure calculation is not the same thing as true human creativity. So, when our machines finally become 1 billion times faster than the smartest man who ever lived, will they just be incredibly fast calculators, or will they spark into something else entirely? I will leave you with that to imagine.